Good morning, America. Breaking overnight, gunfire at a neighborhood block party. At least one person dead and almost a dozen others injured in the chaotic scene.
Multiple people shot in the park. We need this area lit up as a playground.
People sent running for cover, the wounded treated at the scene as police recover a gun, and this morning, the hunt for the man who opened fire.
Fierce backlash. President Trump feeling the heat after slamming Democrat Elijah Cummings and calling Baltimore disgusting and rodent infested. Some calling it a racist attack. We've got the fallout this morning, plus our new poll after Robert Mueller's congressional testimony. Did it change any minds about impeachment?
Americans arrested. The California teens accused of murdering a police officer in Rome, caught on camera after fleeing an alleged drug deal gone bad. The evidence police say they have against them.
Pink Lady Bandit, the serial bank robber striking along the East Coast. How she got her name and the hunt to catch her before she strikes again.
And celebrating the voice of Minnie Mouse.
Are we too late?
Russi Taylor, the voice actor who brought to life the beloved Disney character.
A classic.
Her incredible love story with the real-life Mickey.
Oh, Minnie, you're all the music I'll ever need.
Live from ABC News in New York, this is Good Morning America.
So there's a lot of oohing and ahhing on the set this morning in reaction to the Minnie and Mickey story, mostly from Wit.
I mean, it's a beautiful love story, and it's a great life to celebrate.
Yes.
It is. We'll be talking about that coming up. We also have a lot of news this morning. In a moment, we'll be getting to the backlash over the president's attacks on the city of Baltimore, as well as our new poll numbers on Robert Mueller's congressional testimony. But we're going to start here with some breaking news overnight.
Police in New York City are searching for the suspect or suspects who shot up a block party in Brooklyn. One person is dead, 11 injured. Social media video shows emergency responders treating people there at the scene.
And Mayor Bill de Blasio, who's running for president right now, weighing in on all of this. ABC's Zachary Quiche is on the scene this morning with the very latest. Zachary, good morning.
Whit, good morning to you. This Brooklyn park has become a crime scene. We've been seeing investigators and police really comb through and work this area all morning long. We're also told that a gun was actually found just over my shoulder here, just outside the park, after gunfire erupted at a block party.
There's at least 5 victims at this time. I think they just found another one.
This morning, a manhunt underway after a dozen people were shot at a Brooklyn playground overnight. One of them was killed.
Aviation base, be advised, we got multiple people shot in the park. We need this area lit up as a playground.
The chaotic scene unfolding at a block party filled with people just before 10 p.m. last night.
We're very depressed, very sad that this event has happened and that there are people who have been victimized.
Debris strewn about as victims were taken away on stretchers. From the air to the ground, police combing the area for evidence. This officer going through a bag, pulling out what appears to be a gun. Police saying the number of shooters is unclear and that they are trying to determine a motive. Investigators turning to the community for any leads.
Another year, another shooting. This is like every year, like it's not safe no more.
A 38-year-old man was killed. All the other victims were taken to a local hospital. I can also tell you that just by looking at the scene, you really get a sense of the kind of the chaos and confusion around here, with things just kind of thrown all over the place. Now, we did hear from the mayor overnight in a tweet saying, "We had a terrible shooting in Brownsville tonight that shattered a peaceful neighborhood event. Our hearts go out to the victims. We will do everything in our power to keep this community safe and get guns off the street." Again, a lot of this is still fluid. We expect to hear from the commissioner later this morning. Whit.
All right, Zachary Quiche, thanks so much. And just to point out, Mayor Bill de Blasio will be on This Week later on this morning to get some reaction on what happened there. We do want to transition, though. President Trump facing fierce backlash after his blistering attack on Congressman Elijah Cummings and the city the Democrat represents. The president calling Baltimore dangerous, filthy, and rat-infested. Now, some are calling those comments racist and unacceptable. ABC's White House correspondent Tara Palmieri is on the North Lawn with that war of words. Tara, good morning.
Good morning. Many of the residents and political leaders of Baltimore have been reacting with outrage. The Baltimore Sun was out with a scathing editorial titled "Better to have a few rats than to be one." But President Trump is doubling down, and as of midnight last night, still tweeting about Congressman Cummings and his city. The mayor of Baltimore firing back at the president after he tweeted calling the predominantly black city a disgusting rat and rodent-infested mess, and claiming no human being would want to live there.
It is completely unacceptable for the president to attack a vibrant American city.
This defense in response to the president's attacks on yet another Congress member of color, House Oversight Committee Chairman Elijah Cummings, who has been holding hearings on the inhumane conditions in migrant detention centers.
Come on, man. None of us would have our children in that position. They are human beings.
The president attacking Cummings for his investigation, tweeting, Elijah Cummings spends all of his time trying to hurt innocent people through oversight. He does nothing for his very poor, very dangerous, and very badly run district. Cummings' district includes most of Baltimore and is majority black. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi swiftly condemned the tweets as racist, tweeting, "We all reject racist attacks against him." Trump also used that term infested on Twitter to target 4 minority congresswomen last week, telling them to, quote, go back to the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came. All 4 congresswomen are American citizens. Only one, Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, was born outside of the United States in Somalia. The president's attacks on Omar prompting this chant at a rally in North Carolina. Now Cummings defending himself, tweeting, "It is my constitutional duty to conduct oversight of the executive branch, but it is my moral duty to fight for my constituents." CNN anchor Victor Blackwell brought to tears by the president's characterization of his hometown.
People get up and go to work there. They care for their families there. They love their children who pledge allegiance to the flag, just like people who live in districts of congressmen who support you, sir. They are Americans, too.
About 40 Democratic members of Congress have come out to condemn the president's attacks. Many of them called them racist, but not a single Republican member has come out against the president. Whit?
All right, Tara Palmieri at the White House for us. Thank you. We are getting our first glimpse this morning into how Americans feel about Robert Mueller's highly anticipated testimony on Capitol Hill last week. A just released ABC News Ipsos poll finds Democrats and Republicans are deeply divided on impeaching the president. A majority of Americans, 71%, say they either read, saw, or heard about the special counsel's testimony about Russian election interference and possible obstruction. 27% say that they are more likely to support impeachment. 26% say they are less likely, and 47% say their opinion hasn't changed at all. But when it comes to Mueller's stark warning about foreign countries interfering in our elections, a combined 54%, you see the total there at the bottom, they do not feel confident the U.S. can effectively defend itself. Only 17% said they were very confident. Some interesting numbers. Dan, over to you.
Indeed, Whit. Thank you, sir. Let's bring in our chief anchor, George Stephanopoulos, who's going to be hosting This Week later this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, guys.
So on your show this morning, you've got Jerry Nadler, who's the chair of the House Judiciary Committee. There are reports that behind the scenes he's really pushing for impeachment and that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is pushing back. So given the numbers we just saw there, what's the state of play on impeachment?
Well, there's a theme that holds together all the stories this morning. The theme is division. You saw it in that poll right there on impeachment. You saw it in the hearings on Wednesday when you had Democrats raising questions about Mueller's report, Republicans raising questions about the investigation in the first place, and defending the president, not expressing much concern about Russia at all. Listen, the Senate is never going to convict President Trump, even if the House impeaches. It doesn't appear that the House is going to start formal impeachment proceedings with a vote of the full House. On the other hand, one of the points that Chairman Nadler makes, and he followed through with the court filing on Friday, is that, in essence, the House Judiciary Committee is already investigating impeachment. I believe that investigation is going to continue. They're going to continue to try and call witnesses like the president's counsel, Don McGahn. The White House is fighting that. It's going to be up to the courts now to determine whether or not that investigation can proceed, whether they'll order the witnesses to appear.
Are they moving forward here because they have hopes of damaging the president politically, or because they think it's their duty, or both?
A little bit of both. I think among those who are pushing hardest for impeachment right now, they believe it's their duty, because the politics of it, as we saw in that poll, are kind of a wash, at least right now. Some would argue that it would create a backlash. But I think that they look at the evidence that Mueller compiled about the president's team cooperating with Russia, not in a criminal way, but cooperating with Russia during the campaign, lying about it afterwards, the evidence of obstruction of justice, and say we can't allow a president to get away with this without trying to hold him accountable.
Let's look back to the president's tweets about the city of Baltimore. The Washington Post has a story up this morning saying that Trump's advisors have concluded that, quote, the overall message sent by such attacks is good for the president among his political base, resonating strongly with the white working class voters he needs to win re-election in 2020. Do you agree with that?
Well, that's them elaborate in the president's gut instinct. I mean, this is now the second time in a month where the president attacked African-American members of Congress, and I think that he's going to continue to do this, and it is possible, and he believes that it could mobilize some of his supporters. But the big question now is, if you see this continuing series of racist attacks by the president, who is it going to push off? And, you know, one of the things we saw in the 2018 midterms is suburban voters, women voters, minority voters all coming out in record numbers. If the president's attacks continue to inflame that group as well, I mean, I think you could see it actually backfiring on the president. But take a step back from that. I mean, with the president continuing these attacks, not just on members of Congress, but on American cities, the city of Baltimore, the president represents and is responsible for the city of Baltimore as well. That is an American city. It's just astonishing that the president continues these attacks in this way.
As you said, the theme this morning, among all the stories we're covering on the political front, is division. George, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. I want to remind everybody, George has a big show this morning. As discussed, he's going to go one-on-one with House Judiciary Committee Chair Jerry Nadler, plus Congressman Will Hurd, discussing election security following Robert Mueller's stark warnings on that front. And the Powerhouse Roundtable takes on the 2020 race. It's all coming up on this week right here on ABC. George, thanks again. Eva, over to you.
All right, thanks, guys. Well, new details are emerging this morning about those two California teens arrested in the stabbing death of an Italian police officer. ABC's David Wright is in our London bureau with the latest. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Eva. The murder of that policeman is being treated as a national tragedy in Italy. His coffin will be on public display today in Rome, not far from the Carabinieri precinct where he served for years. The two Americans, meanwhile, held in a Roman jail, cut off from their families back home. Finnegan Lee Elder and Gabriel Christian Natale Hjorth, both of the San Francisco Bay Area, are being held at Rome's Regina Coeli prison, accused of murdering a policeman. Friends and neighbors back home are shocked.
I'm going to faint here. I've never seen violence in him.
Italian authorities say the two confessed to being involved in a violent altercation over a stolen backpack early Friday morning, in which the police officer was stabbed. Police say the young men were demanding €100 and a gram of cocaine to return the bag to its owner, but the owner of the bag alerted the Carabinieri, who were there in plain clothes, to arrest them. The suspects caught on security cameras as they fled the scene. Police say they found overwhelming evidence in the suspect's hotel room, including the alleged murder weapon cleverly concealed behind one of the ceiling tiles, as well as bloody clothing supposedly worn in the attack. Their bags were reportedly packed, flights booked. Police murders are rare in Italy, so this case is politically charged. Brigadier Mario Circello Rega was 35 years old, a newlywed. Tomorrow, his funeral takes place at the same church where he was married just over a month ago. One of the American suspects' families say they haven't been able to contact their son. After Saturday's detention hearing, Finnegan Lee Elder described his client as psychologically tried, adding, he's a 19-year-old boy. Citing the detention report filed in connection with the case, Italian media report that there may be some discrepancies between the statements given by the two suspects. For instance, one of them supposedly said that the police officer did not identify himself as police. The other said that he did. Of course, Dan, there may be a language barrier.
David Wright, thank you. A little bit of happier news now. Baseball star David Ortiz is out of the hospital this morning, more than a month after he was shot in the Dominican Republic. The former Red Sox slugger just released from that hospital in Massachusetts. Ortiz was ambushed at a bar in Santo Domingo on June 9th. He has had at least 3 surgeries since that shooting.
Now, some terrifying moments on a Milwaukee bus when a driver realizes his vehicle is on fire.
All right, we got to get off. We got to get off. Everybody get off.
Get off, it's a fire.
The driver rushing to help a man in a wheelchair strapped onto the bus as the fire continues to spread. The hero driver able to get everyone out of that bus safely in less than 30 seconds. Officials say they think a hole in a hydraulic hose leaked vapor on the hot engine that ignited the fire.
Incredible video there. Now to the hunt for the bank robber being called the Pink Lady Bandit, striking for a fourth time in a robbery spree along the East Coast. ABC's Lana Zach has more on how police are trying to track her down. Lana, good morning.
Good morning to you guys. What a great name, right? The Pink Lady Bandit. Witnesses say that she often carries out her heists wearing a baseball cap, tank top, and yoga pants, and she's always carrying a trendy purse.
This morning, authorities desperately searching for a serial bank robber who the FBI believes is behind 4 robberies in 3 states in just the past 8 days. During the heist, she's often seen wearing a baseball hat and carrying a pink handbag, leading the FBI to dub her the Pink Lady Bandit.
If you rob a bank, for example, and you use a particular approach, a particular disguise, etc., you may well keep doing it because it works.
The FBI says her East Coast spree started at a bank in Pennsylvania, then moved to another in Delaware 3 days later. And now they say she's robbed 2 banks in North Carolina. Officials say she begins each heist by handing the bank teller a note. The FBI is known to give serial bank robbers nicknames. In 2015, the Snowbird Bandit, a former LAPD detective accused of robbing several banks in California, his spree coming to an end, ultimately the former officer spending his retirement in prison. And in 2013, the so-called I-55 Bandit was wanted in 5 states after targeting banks along the interstate that runs from Illinois to Louisiana. That teen turned himself in and later pleaded guilty.
When you look at other serial bank robbers, there's a lot of similarities, but ultimately she's going to leave a bank too late, or somebody's going to get a great car description and they're going to catch her.
Now, the FBI is offering a $10,000 reward for her capture. They believe that she's in the Carolinas now, but based on her pattern of behavior, she might not be there for long. She's believed to have hit 4 banks in 3 different states in just about a week's time.
Goodness.
And you wore pink in her honor, or is that peach?
Purely coincidental.
I see. Thank you, Lana. I appreciate it. In Florida, a professional surfer says he's lucky to have his arm after an encounter with a shark. 23-year-old Frank O'Rourke says he was just lying on his board in the waters off Jacksonville Beach when he suddenly felt something latch onto his arm and take a bite. O'Rourke managed to escape with only a bloody puncture wound, which he treated himself. He says he's going to stay out of the water for a few weeks, let it heal, but then he's getting right back on his board.
They always go back.
Yes,
they always go back.
Braver than us.
Yep.
If I were a shark, I wouldn't mess with Franco. He treats his own wound.
Yes.
Right back on the board.
Right.
Intimidated by him.
Distant relative of Fabio, I think.
Got good hair, too. Hey, sticking with the West Coast, let's take you to Oregon. We've got problems with fires out there, both in Oregon and in California, much of the West. Several dozen large fires burning. This is one of them near Canyonville in South Oregon. That's I-5. People driving through smoke, through flames in some cases. A 9,000-acre fire yet to have significant containment, and that continues to burn today. Also, a little brush fire sparked overnight. This is Pleasanton, California, just northeast of San Jose. You see that one flaring up. So very dry conditions, and the heat is going to be building as we go through the next couple of days. We've already seen some hot temperatures this week across Southern California. Heat advisories all the way up through Sacramento. Now excessive heat warnings includes much of the San Joaquin Valley, Fresno, back through Palm Springs and Phoenix. 108 degrees expected today, 116 in Palm Springs, and that the heat will continue to build. It looks like right through the next 3 days, maybe cooling off by the time Tuesday comes around. Across the Northwest, we are dry, less wind today. Less lightning, that's good, but very, very dry here, so they're not really helping the fire situation there. That's a check on the national headlines weather-wise. It's time now for a look at your local forecast.
A sunny summer Sunday in store, so have the sunglasses and the SPF with a high UV index. Our high temperature today, 93 degrees. It is going to be a little hotter than yesterday and just a touch more humidity. Most of us will be dry, but I can't rule out an isolated thunderstorm chance, mostly in the mountains. If you're looking for something to do today, Loudoun County has their annual fair. It opens at 10 o'clock. Now, it is going to be hot, so if you want to beat the heat, best to get out early. After lunchtime, we're in the lower 90s and still in the lower 80s by 10 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, it's getting warm out there. Central Park.
Getting warm.
Central Park could have its.
Where have you been the last 2
we're on
weeks?
track for the warmest July since 2013.
I love it. That's like, I'm summing it all up as your friendly neighborhood meteorologist. It's summer and it's warm.
Wear
Stay cool,
deodorant.
my Stay thirsty.
Oh, goodness.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Well, this morning, remember one of Disney's most recognizable voices, the woman who voiced Minnie Mouse for more than 30 years, passing away. And ABC's Maggie Rowley joins us with a look at the legacy Russi Taylor leaves behind.
It was quite a legacy, Eva. Russi's once quoted as saying, "I never wanted to be famous. The characters I do are famous, and that's fine for me." But looking back at her legacy this morning, it's clear she certainly made her mark on history.